Hey Rebel Rouser, I'm Alan Voivod, and this is Star Wars 7 by 7 So we are getting close to the end of our coverage of the Last Jedi novelization by Jason Fry and the wonderful audiobook performance by Mark Thompson for Penguin Random House Audio. And we talked a little bit yesterday about how General Hux is already seeing fear on Kylo Ren's face when Luke appears on Creighton, how he's already thinking, General Hux is, about getting Ren sidelined and moved out of the way so that way Hux can take over the First Order army, because really it should be under the command of somebody like him, not some weird sorcerer or anything like that. No, it's technology, and so it should be with somebody who is deriving his power from technology, not somebody who's deriving his power from some weird mystical force or anything like that. So we already know that Hux has had it with Kylo Ren, and, they've been at odds with each other for a while, so no surprise. However, we also know that Rey is done with Kylo Ren, and so earlier in the novel, we had that moment where when Kylo woke up in Snoke's ruined throne room and realized that Rey had a chance to kill him and didn't, and thought, well, maybe she has some sort of feeling for him. Well, that moment where they have that Force connection one more time, and it's really interesting to take a second to think about that, because if Snoke had been bridging that connection previously while he was still alive, then how exactly did it happen this time? Not really explained in the novel, unfortunately, but there is no hatred in Rey's eyes as far as Kylo Ren can see, but also just no emotion at all, basically. She's just, nah, I'm done with you. And she slams the connection. So she is another person who has had it with Kylo Ren and all his business. But those two are nothing compared to the reminiscences of Luke and Leia in these final scenes. There's a gorgeous moment that I think has to have at least been partially inspired by the fact that Leia and Chewie never hugged after the death of Han Solo when Chewie arrived back at the base on Dakar. And it was just a blocking thing, J.J. Abrams said, that had, Chewie running past Leia and Leia going past him, and they're not acknowledging each other whatsoever. So it was just one of those like stage direction things behind the scenes that explained why they never commiserated over the death of Han. But they kind of made up for it with this scene in the Last Jedi novelization, and it's a scene where Leia goes into the cockpit to break the news to Chewie that Luke has passed, and that it's just the two of them now, and she reminisces reminisces about the times that she had with Chewie, throwing herself into his arms ecstatically after they got away from the Sentry ships running from the Death Star way back in the original movie, to being by his side during the travels from Hoth to Bespin and everywhere in between that they were going. And he gets up and just hugs her and holds her very gently, and she has a moment where she's able to break down and let go of some of the pain and the sadness that's been building up in her all this time. And of course, part of that is the pain of loss of Ben as well. And we know from the movie that she knows that he's gone, that he can't be redeemed, or at least that is where she's at this moment in time. And it seems like she is grieving for the loss and finally accepting the loss, that Ben Solo is no more and that he is not coming back in any way, shape, or form. And then there's Uncle Luke, and Uncle Luke is looking at Kylo not just as a random person, but is looking at him through the Force, even though he is thousands of light years away, probably millions of light years away. He is still looking at Kylo through the Force and seeing something that is really just kind of heartbreaking in a way. It says in the novel that he blazes in the Force, Ren does, and that his pain and fear are stronger than his anger. That's what Luke senses. And he comes to realize, and this is roughly what it is, Kylo Ren was just a shell around the same broken boy he'd tried to reach, Luke had tried to reach. And Luke had hoped to mend him and started blaming himself for the damage done, and ultimately realized that it was not his responsibility to fix Ben Solo, unfortunately. And so Luke is able to come to a peace with his guilt over what happened with Ben and him turning into Kylo Ren and losing him to the dark side of the Force, and how he feels like he let down not only Leia and Han, but also, the students that were killed as a result of this whole situation as well. To say nothing of the fact that, when Ben becomes Kylo, he goes on to do all sorts of atrocious things. But Luke is able to let it go, and yet he's able to reflect on the boy, and despite the fact that he just was broken, that there wasn't anything he could do, and that there wasn't any more responsibility that he had for it. Which does, of course, open up the question, why was he this broken boy in the first place? Where was the break? And hopefully that's something that we are going to learn about, maybe if we're lucky, sometime between now and 2019, when the final movie in this sequel series of movies comes out. Wouldn't it be nice if we could have some answers about the backstory by the time that rolls around? So yes, pretty much everyone's had it with Kylo. Everybody's done with him. They want no part of him, and it's only gonna make him all the more salty, I think, when we see him in episode 9. Anyway, that is going to do it for today's video, with the exception of a little additional thing I'll do over on the audio version of the podcast. That is at sw7x7.com/iTunes, or wherever you like to listen to your podcasts. But for now, it just remains for me to say thank you so much for watching, and may the Force be with you wherever in the world you may be.